All right, what happened to October? So far in October, the bears are still in control. And as I was showing you guys on the SPY over the last couple of weeks, we had a confirmed head and shoulders break. Yesterday was the do or die day to see whether or not we were going to get faked back out to the upside or whether we were going to get another red candle today, giving us a strong confirmation that we were going to go down and test the 200-day moving average, which is also the February 2023 swing high levels. So we're going to go back. That used to be resistance. Now we're going to test it for support. That's between 418, but the SPY could go as low as 418 to 413, depending on what it wants to do. So far, in the last 3 weeks, the only real profitable trades that I've had consistently have been to buy puts on the SPY. And so far this week, it's continuing to look the same way. So the bottom line is that when that JOLTS report came out, it caused the dollar to pop. It caused the yield curves to spike, and it definitely got the attention of the Fed. And the concern is that there isn't going to be a pivot in 2023, but instead there's going to be one more rate hike probably in December. And the problem with all of that is that it just simply hasn't been priced in. So today's video is going to be about Bitcoin and the miners. And I did a lot of research for you guys to give you fresh support for the miners and a little bit of a clue as to what I see in the Bitcoin charts. But I'm going to cover some top stocks really quickly. We're going to start off with Amazon. Okay, so right off the bat, we broke support yesterday at 126.80, which was a good spot to enter puts. Now beneath that, I gave you guys a possible entry level of 125.50. Now I began to scale into some Amazon calls hoping for a reversal, but as we got to the end of the day, I saw that we back tested my critical level of support of 125.50 twice, and it failed there. And that's a pretty good sign that it wants to continue to go down. Where does it want to go to? Well, the next level beneath where we're sitting right now is 122, which would be a test of the 200 EMA. And it seems to me right now that unless we spike over 125.50 tomorrow and hold that line strong, it seems to me that the market wants to go lower. And since the SPY is not yet at that 418 and potentially even as low as 415 or 413, there's room down for the rest of big tech to give up some market cap, and I think that's what's going to happen. I did, though, add to my long-term Amazon position in my retirement account today because this is a good price range in my eyes. All right, let's touch base on Disney for just a moment. So Disney, I want to point out that we still have not broken critical support on Disney. Currently, because of moving averages, it's sitting at $79.10. And so here's what I want you guys to understand. If we don't close beneath $79.10, we've not broken critical support, and this can continue to go higher from here. But if we do break beneath $79.10, then we can get down into that $74, $76 price range. Now, I want to point out a couple other technicals with you guys. One, it went down on decreasing volume today, which means that there's not a lot of momentum in selling right now. So unless that $79.10 range breaks, it seems to me more that we're seeing accumulation because we are getting very strong bullish divergence in the RSI, which means that as the price has been slowly getting lower and lower, the momentum to the downside is getting slower and slower. And so all of that for a long-term play on Disney is still showing strength. But even though we've got bullish divergence on the RSI, we have to remember that we're still in bear territory on the RSI. And so the bears are running the show on Disney still, I think, until we get back above $85, $86. And that's when it might begin to show us that the bulls are back in charge. All right, I want to keep my commentary on Tesla very, very simple. 245 turned out to be a good place to pick up some Tesla calls. I will tell you that I'm closing any call positions before market close because I simply don't want to be exposed to the risk to the downside in the morning. It's okay if I don't get all of the move up. I still believe that largely big tech is oversold and there's going to be some nice opportunities to catch a reversal here to the resistance levels that I've given you guys over the last couple weeks. All right, this is the Stocks with Josh show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for already hitting the like. Got to hit the subscribe button to get the calls that I'm making on stock and crypto on this page each and every day. And I've got some great calls for you today on the Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin here. Before I get into that, let let me just go over a couple things quickly. If you want to get free stock, there is an offer from the Moomoo Investment app that is a zero cost to trade platform. And if you open up and fund an account here in the United States, they'll give you up to 16 free stock, as well as they're available in Australia and Canada. I left a link in the top pinned comment for you to check it out for yourselves and see what your offer is. And I want you to check out the Discord to get more content from me and the Stock Squad. That's Stock Up with Larry Jones, Keenan Grace, Stockmo, and myself in there. And as I said to you guys yesterday, I'm going to be meeting up with Keenan Grace here shortly, and we're going to do a basic charting class for support and resistance here over the next couple days. Keep your eye out for that in the Discord. All right, let's just talk about what's going on with Bitcoin. Where are we at? Well, let's just recap. You guys know that I've said it many times that the halving event is ahead of us in March or April of 2024. And Bitcoin has not broken down, but we still have a volatile market and Bitcoin's part of it. And so we've got to consider what the impact of the macro environment can be on stocks and crypto and where they could go to the downside. Now, recently, the last time I covered Bitcoin, I told you that we would get as high as 28,500 to knock out a liquidity level that I thought was right there, right beneath a descending line of resistance. And we sure enough came up, hit that, candle turned ugly overnight. We got a rejection candle. So where do we go from here? So here's what I want you guys to see. I don't have a specific target as I normally do. I'll simply tell you guys this. We are still trading in the box that I drew with a bottom line of 25.5 and a top line of 31.8. And we're really somewhat in the middle of that box. And here's one of the main things I want to point out. We're largely moving sideways. Ever since we defined the top and bottom of that range, that support level, we've been moving within it. Twice we've tested the bottom, once we've tested the top, and the fact is that we could go back up and test the top, but I think because of the macro environment we're in, we're going to see more risk to the downside. And it's the time frame I want you guys to be focused on. Largely, I think we've got 2 more months of what could be extreme volatility in Bitcoin. And that volatility could actually put us in a much bigger range than I've drawn for you guys. There's 2 areas I want to point out to you. The true top of our current global range is actually 48K. And yes, before the end of this year, we could actually get as high as 48K on Bitcoin. The true bottom of the range would be a retest of our 52-week low, which was around 15,500. And so there is a chance that we could retest that low, but there's also a chance that we could get all the way up to 48K. What I largely see us doing over the course of the next 2 months is continuing to move sideways. Right now, that range is shown itself to be a near top of around 28,500, and we could go back and we could actually get as low as 24K. That's about as low as I actually personally think this will go, but I don't have a crystal ball. Largely, I think we're going to move sideways. But if we drift off and continue to move back and ultimately do a flash test down to 24K, which is what I think is the most likely scenario, but that's just my opinion, that's still going to have a very negative effect on the miners. And you guys can see that the miners have been getting crushed. Now, I did a bunch of homework for you guys on the miners. I've actually put them in a rating order between 1 and 7. And I'm going to show you guys 2 levels of support that are beneath where we're at right now. And so here's a couple things I'm going to point out first. One, if you look at the candles that we got on the majority of the miners over the last 2 days, which is actually similar to the candles that we've gotten on a lot of other stocks, which was we got an inverted hammer at the top of a run, and then we got a really big, long red candle. Those are 2 very bearish candles, and they are definitely pointing to more pressure to the downside. But here's the other factor that I want you to marry. I want you to marry those ugly candles with the volume profile that we got today. And when these stocks were moving down, the volume and the momentum to the downside was moving up very quickly. And that's how I've rated their performance, comparing them to each other. Which had the highest down volume today tells us about how they're overall performing. There was more interest and more momentum to the downside on some of these than there were others. So let me just throw this chart up, and I want you guys to look at it. I want you guys to screenshot it because I think it could become very important. For some of you, it's going to be a sober reality of how low these can go potentially in the next 2 months before Bitcoin reverses and before we get closer to the halving event. So for some of you, it's going to be scary, but let's just go through it pretty quickly. Actually, the one that came down the least today was Hive. But in the future, it still has the potential of hitting a support level of 86 cents and then beneath that 70 cents. And so there's plenty of room to the downside. But this actually didn't increase in its momentum to the downside. The volume of selling pressure actually decreased. And so this had less volume to the downside today, so it does appear that there was a fair amount of interest in buying up Hive where it's currently at. Then beneath that was Riot. Riot was the next better performer of the day, but you can see it can come down to 870 and 670 respectively, and it had an increase of selling pressure of 11% over its typical daily volume. Cipher is one that I'm actually putting more interest in and accumulating, ticker CIFR, and it can go down quite a bit from where it's at. And you'll notice that on some of these, I put a percentage. I put roughly between 20 to 26% for its second support level. And so right now, there's the opportunity to lose upwards if you were to have bought today an additional 20 to 25% to the downside. Cipher, $2 and $1.80. You guys can see HUT, it actually was down a little bit more. It had an increase of selling pressure of 20%. Mara is a bad underperformer. Mara used to be one of my favorites, but I'll be honest, I've flipped over to Riot, Hive, and Cipher. Those are my three top Bitcoin mining stocks right now. Those are the ones that I'm interested in. And Mara is currently not on the list because of the way it's been performing. One of the problems is that the CEO has put forward this dilution plan. And guys, I hate dilution. I understand companies need to raise capital. Mara's been one that has done a lot of dilution over the years. I know it's a necessary function, but the bottom line, it really then throws off the technicals and has to be calculated in, and the default has to be to the downside. And so that's why Mara was underperforming the miners today. Then you've got CleanSpark and Bitfarms. They're obviously on the bottom of the list because there was a positive increase in momentum to the downside by around 35% for both of them. So they're underperforming while Hive, Riot, and Cipher are doing the best out of the group. But you can still see that by my calculations, if Bitcoin remains in a sideways downward pressure moment with a capitulation moment, then the fact is, and if it does that over the next 2 months, then the fact is that these can easily drop an additional 20 to 25% each. But out of this list, I'm going to be accumulating Hive, Riot, and Cipher between the two levels of support that I just gave you guys today. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video right now. Let me know in the comment section, guys, if you have any questions about what I've shared. Thanks again for hitting the like, hit the subscribe to continue to get content like this. Come find me for more technicals over in the Discord this week. Thanks again. Peace and blessings. Take care.